Peace. Peace. Power. Mad liberator, death operator, rock the data, amazing flavor. Yo, the way I feel, sometimes it's too hard to sit still. Things are so passionate, times are so real. Sometimes I try to chill, mellow down, blow a smoke. A smile on my face, but it's really no joke. You feel it in the street that people breathe without hope. They going through the motion, they dimming down the focus. The focus get cleared and the light turns sharp and the eyes grow teary, the mind grow weary. I speak it so clearly, sometimes y'all don't hear me. I push it past the bass note, nations got to feel me. I feel it in my bones, black, I'm so wide awake that I'm hardly ever sleep. My flow forever deep in its volumes of scriptures when I breathe on a beat. My presence speak volumes before I say a word. I'm everywhere, penthouse, pavement, the curb. Cradle to the grave, so cathedral of a shell. Universal ghetto life, holla black, you know it well. Quiet storm, vital form, pen push the bright across. Mind is a vital force, hollow right across. Soul is the lion's roar, voice is the siren. I swing round, ring out, and bring down the tyrant. Chop a small axe and knock a giant lopsided. The world is so dangerous, there's no need for frightened. The suckers trying to hide like the struggle won't find them. Then the sun busts through the cloud to clearly remind them this everywhere. Penthouse, pavement, the curb. Cradle to the grave, talk cathedral of a shell. Universal ghetto life, holla black, you know it well what it is. You know, they know what it is. We know, y'all know what it is. Ecstatic, there it is. What it is. You know, we know what it is. They know, y'all know what it is. You know, here it is. What it is. You know, we know what it is. They know, y'all know what it is. You know, here it is. Peace, power. Fantastic. Original. And always on time. And rocking your mind. It's like
sit and come relax, riddle of the Mac, it's the patch. I'm a soldier in the middle of Iraq. What say about noonish, coming out the whip and looking at me curious, a young Iraqi kid carrying laundry. What's wrong, G? Hungry?
No, give me my oil, get out my country.
And in Arabian, barking other stuff till his moms come grab him and they walk off in a rush. Distrust, feeling like I was pissed up on wound. I'm like, surely hope that we can fix our differences soon. Buying apples, hun breaking on.
Fruit, you take everything, why not just take the damn fruit like pasta?
I don't understand it. On another planet? 15 months of this stuff, how I'm gonna manage? And increasing this sentiment, gentlemen getting down on their Middle Eastern instruments. Realize trapping this crap. Walk over, kicked one of my fabulous raps. Arab jaw drop, they well wish, they glad rap. Now the kid considered like an Elvis of Baghdad.
هادي ما تربحش وهادي ما تربحش، هادي ما تربحش، هادي تربح، هادي تربح، لازم، هادي ما تربحش وهادي ما تربحش دايما على لازم.
What it is.
قاعد عند نزيد شوف واحد يضحك واحد يبكي.
تو اللي بعتوك.
ايه انا اللي بعتوني. ها.
What it is. You know, they know what it is. We know, y'all know what it is. Ecstatic, there it is. What it is. You know, we know what it is. They know, y'all know what it is. You know, here it is. What it is. You know, we know what it is. They know, y'all know what it is. You know, here it is. Keep on rocking you.
Alright, so this week we're going to be focusing on Jdbc. It's pretty straightforward. Just once you've learned it, it is what it is. I mean, it's basically kind of like file I/O. In fact, we'll be following the same exact steps. JDBC, of course, is Java Database Connectivity API. We'll explain it a little bit more in detail here, but basically it allows you to write Java code to connect to your database, process the data in Java instead of always working over here in MySQL Workbench. To get started, we're going to have to download a library for this. So just to get you started, let me show you how to do that. Come on, all the way to the bottom. There we go. All right, so getting started. We're going to have to download this connector J file. And this is because of dependency inversion. Each not manufacturer, but each vendor, Microsoft, Oracle, whatever, they will produce a jar file for you to connect to their specific database. And so when you go to this website here, if you just search Google for connector J, Oracle, or MySQL is what you want, then select it for platform independent. It really doesn't matter. Java is platform independent. Either a tarball or a zip file here. And let's go ahead and select the tarball here. Don't sign in, don't log in, don't do anything like that. That's just Oracle trying to get your information. No thanks, just download start my download right here. Okay. Once you've started your download, it will. Here's my tarball, and expanding it looks something like this. There's my connector J file. That's the jar file that I want. All you have to do is make sure that it is in your project. All right. To do that, generally you'll have a lib folder. Right. That's where you should put all the external jar files. Drag and drop it over, making sure to copy the files, not linking the files. Right. Say OK, and now it's in your project. You have to add it to your build path. So remember, build path, add to build path, and we're all set up right now to connect to MySQL, and that's it. Right. Now, of course, we have to actually write some code to do that. Before we do that, though, let's understand, give an overview of what we're doing. Right? Again, we are programmatically connecting to a database to process, load, and persist or save data. Right? Whenever we always say persist, not save, because it persists across different connections of your database or of your program. Most languages, in fact, screw it, all languages that are worth anything, will have some support for database connectivity. Right? In C, it would be ODBC, Open Database Connectivity API. Python has something, I forget what it's called. C# has, what is it? Object. I forget what the C# calls them, but it's embedded in the language itself. You don't even need a library. Open data, DAOs. Data Access Objects, DAOs, I think it was what Microsoft calls them. But in any case, the idea here is that you're programming in a particular language. That language will want to connect to a database, right? And for us, that's going to be Java Database Connectivity API, or JDBC. That itself is made up of another acronym. That acronym is Application Programmer Interface. Remember that this is a perfect illustration of dependency inversion of the solid principles. These are the solid principles. Right? In fact, this is the D of the solid principles, dependency inversion. You don't program to connect to a MySQL database. You program towards an interface. And then all you need to do is bring in this jar file here, and that implements the interface so that you're keeping loose coupling between your code and the database, so that if ever you want to change this, just throw away this jar and bring in Postgres jar instead. Right? And you don't need to change a single line of code. Right? Again, you don't program towards a specific database, you program towards an interface. And then the vendors provide a driver for your library to conform to their database. All right, so we are there. This library is actually quite large. We're going to keep it simple by focusing on three things here. You need a connection to your database. You need a statement, a query, and that's going to be a prepared statement. You need a result set, because if you're expecting results back, you need a way to handle those results, and that result set is your way of doing that. Right? Later on, if we are so inclined and we have some time, we can look at ORMs, in particular JPA. These are object relational mapping systems where you don't actually write JDBC code. Instead, you annotate your classes to say that this table this class's member variable corresponds to this table's column over here, and then it takes care of everything for you. I do have a video on it if you want to check it out, but otherwise don't do it for your project, and do JDBC first, and then if you have time, go the extra mile and play around with JPA, right? Why? Because JDBC is way straightforward, right? The setup on JPA can get persnickety, and also using JPA properly requires a almost one-to-one correspondence between your database and your Java objects. Okay. All right. So the process. Right? The process is that you have to open up your connection, prepare your query, which means preparing it and executing it, process your results, and clean up your resources. This is just like opening a file. You open the file, you process the file, you clean it up, right, by closing the file. And we're going to close our resources here as well. Right? But otherwise, it's the same over and over and over. This is why they call them CRUD applications. Not just because it's create, retrieve, update, and destroy, but because they've got the same common patterns that you'll get sick of over and over and over again, right? All right, so let's come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new demo class. Demo. I should have created it with a main here, but public static void main string args. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up a person. I want a person and all of their emails. P is equal to new person. Now I can go ahead and create that as a POJO, a plain old Java object here, but I don't want to just create it in Java. What I want to do is I want to actually load it from the database. So there are all the people. Okay. Let's go ahead and start a little bit different here. Let's go ahead and load up all of the people. Right. List of person. Right. Everyone is equal to new. I'm not going to say new array list. Instead, I'm going to say load persons. Right. Load everybody here. Okay. And I don't want to create that class. Let's go ahead and import that, and then you'll figure out that it's the person class that I want to load. There we go. All right, this is going to be a function that I have to write now. Public static list of persons, right? Load persons. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a list here. A list of persons right, is equal to new array list, right? And we'll return persons. Okay. Now I'm going to do my outline here. Let's go ahead and bring this in. Import that. 1. Create a connection. Right. 2. Formulate your query. And that's going to be 2A. You're going to prepare your query. And then 2B is going to be the execute query. Right. And then 3, process the results. Ultimately, I'm going to take these out anyway. I mean, I'll leave them in there for the notes or whatever, but you would not leave these in. This is cruft. Get rid of it. And then close your resources. That was just me pulling over these 1, 2, 3, 4 processes. Okay? All right, so create a connection. To create a connection, you're going to need a URL that you're connecting to. You're going to need a username, and you are going to use need your password. That sounds really familiar. That's exactly what you did over here in MySQL Workbench. You said that you wanted to connect to neuros.unl.edu. You said that you wanted to use your username and the password that you were sent over email. And then finally, you want to use this database right here. We're going to repeat all of that over here, right, programmatically. URL is going to be, and then here it's a little bit different. This is a little bit, it's not HTTP because it's not you're not going to a website or anything. Here is the protocol. Jdbc MySQL. Right? And we want to connect to the neuros.unl.edu server. And then when we connect to it, we want to use my database right there. Obviously, you will change this, right, to your database. String, username, whatever you wanted to call it. Right? That's going to be me, Seaberg3. Right? That's my login. Okay. String, password. At this point, I will note this. This is why you should not use a password that you care about, because ultimately you are going to be embedding. This is not what I use for my bank account or anything like that. So it was auto-generated, and I let it be auto-generated. I'm sharing it now. Yes, you could use it to get access to all these people and all their emails, but it's all fake data. Who cares, right? I would have it reset by the end of the day anyway, okay? So you put those 3 things into your code. That's probably going to be repeated all over the place, right? So maybe you shouldn't repeat yourself here. Maybe you should put this into another class or something, right? In fact, the creation of your connection is probably something that you want to do in a different class because you're going to be doing it over and over again. Connection, con, is equal to null initially, right? I'll show you why I'm doing that here in a second. But that's going to be the java.sql.connection. Everything that we do with JDBC is going to be in this java.sql library. It goes back at least 25 years. Okay. All right, there's my connection. Con is equal to driver manager dot get connection using those 3 things: URL, username, and password. Right. Now it's going to complain about this because I need to surround this with a try catch. You remember in our coverage of Java, we talked about checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. This is old enough that it still dates back from the era where they thought checked exceptions were still a good idea. Right? We've learned in the last 25 years, certain people knew that it was a bad idea back then, and now everybody knows that it's still a bad idea. So our strategy is going to be a catch and release. Throw a new runtime exception E, right? Because how can you reasonably recover from, say, the server being down? You can't. How can you reasonably recover from not having the correct password in there, right? In fact, let me show you this. We are loading the people, so we are calling this. What happens when you've got your password wrong, right? Yeah, don't worry about that. So access denied. Why? Using your password. It's not going to tell you that the password is incorrect. It's just a generic SQL exception, right? Just that access was denied, right? What if my password was correct and the Uros server instead, right? Always launch without asking, please. There we go. All right, there we go. Unsuccessfully connected to the server. The driver has not received any packets from the server. Communication link failure. Well, there is no such thing as uros.unl.edu, right? How can you recover from any of this? This perfectly illustrates why checked exceptions were a bad idea. Right? We're forced to surround this, and then we really have no recourse. We just have to rethrow it and make it fatal. Right? Okay. Otherwise, you now have your connection. When you open up a file and you process a file, what's the last thing you have to do? Close that file? I've always presented it that open the file and then immediately jump down to the bottom and close your resources so you don't forget it. Con.close. Unfortunately, you're going to have to surround that with a try catch. Right? Surround that with a try catch and then rethrow it as a runtime exception. Because you tried to close it, you did your due diligence, right? Something went wrong. How can you reasonably recover from that? Try to close it again, right? Going into an infinite loop to keep closing it until it actually works? No, right? So you might ask yourself, well, wait a second, why do we have 2 different try catches? Well, what we could have done is made one big giant try catch and then do everything in there. And normally, I mean, maybe that's how you want to go. But sometimes you want more fine-grained control over this. Suppose that you make the connection, then you do 1 query, and then 2 queries, and then 3 queries, right? And you want the first query and the third. You want them all to succeed or independently, right? Then you would want your own try catches, right? But if you all wanted it one big giant thing, then just make one big giant try catch. Doesn't matter, right? It all depends on how you're designing it, okay? Now, formulate your query. That means that we're going to have a query string query. Right? I'm not going to write SQL code in Java. Right? That's why I keep this open over here. And this is yet another reason that developers like multiple screens, right? Because you're going to have a screen over there and a screen over there. I only have 1 screen here, so I have to keep going back and forth. But if I had multiple screens, even if it's just a crappy monitor, I could put something over there and then go back and forth, right? So select from everything from person. Right? Is that syntactically correct? Yeah, it is. Right? Is it the best way of doing it, though? Did we actually design our Java class there to have a middle name? Nope. So it's going to end up pulling over a null byte at least, or whatever, however it's representing null. Right? What if instead I had an image over here, a blob, a binary large object? So in addition to the person and their IDs and everything like that, I also had like an image of them because I'm storing it in the database for some reason. By using star here, it's pulling across all that data over the wire, right? Even though I'm not actually going to end up using it. All I really want is person ID, UUID, first name, and last name. There, now I'm not pulling over unnecessary data. And you might ask yourself, well, obviously we're not storing the blob here. We're not storing that image. What if some DBA comes along and we've used star here instead, and then some DBA comes along and then they start storing a blob in there, unbeknownst to us. Now we're getting calls because everything is taking 10 times as long as it did before, right? We're going to protect ourselves from those DBAs, and we're going to be making more sensible queries here. Only pulling that which we need. We don't need that middle name. Once you're sure that it works over here, copy, paste, bring it over. There. Right? Don't do any guesswork over here, right? And then, oh, it's bad. Then do it over in MySQL Workbench, make sure it works, and then bring it over here. Yeah?
Do we need to bring it over the person ID section as well?
I'm going to want it, yeah. Well, good point, though. Did we put that into our class? I don't see an ID here. So maybe we have a argument now for putting in fact, we don't have a UUID. We're going to need that too. Private UUID, UUID. There we go. And private int person ID. Right? Why? Because we want a connection to our database. Right? Ultimately, I'm going to be pulling these emails too, and this is going to be my foreign key. Right? And if I don't have that, I'm out of luck. Right? So let's bring that in, import. And let's go ahead and redesign this a little bit, because now I also want a constructor, and I want them using everything except the emails. Right, there we go, because we have that add email method. Right? That looks good. Remember that you can have as many constructors as you want, and now I have a reason to have more constructors, because now I want a constructor for a CSV file, a JSON file, a database. Okay. In fact, maybe instead of int, you would want to make this integer, because what if it doesn't have a connection to the database yet, because you just created it and you don't want to save it to your database? Well, then this value can be null here. Right? Integer. There. I like that a little bit better. We're also bringing over the UUID. Let's go ahead and change our toString method here to be plus. Don't do that. String.format. Use that instead. And then you can put in the formatting here of last name, comma, first name, and then in parentheses here, we can put in a integer, and then the UUID, which is also going to be a string. So this dot last name, this dot first name, this dot person ID, and this dot UUID. There. Just to make sure that it works. Right? Okay. We also might want emails. We'll come back and deal with that later, though. All right, there's my query. Now I need to prepare my query. So I need a prepared statement. Yes, there are statements. There are unprepared statements. There are about a dozen other classes. Do not use them. Only use a prepared statement. We'll talk about that later on. Why? But anyway, my connection is responsible for preparing my statement. Prepared statement SQL query. There. Okay. I need to bring that in as well. It's in the SQL library, Jdbc library. And once again, I am forced to surround this with a try catch. Right? Which means that I probably should have followed the same pattern as before, where I set that initially equal to null so that I can close it down here, ps.close. Now, why did I close the prepared statement and then close the connection? There's a hierarchy here. I create a connection. The connection creates the prepared statement, and eventually that prepared statement is going to create what's called a result set. I need to close them in the reverse order that they were created. Creation, deletion, they go in the opposite directions, just like tables. Okay. All right. So actually, I'm going to move all of this stuff up here. There. So prepare the statement. There we go. Prepare your query. Execute your query. All right, and let's go ahead and execute it. So result set. That's the object that it's going to return. rs is equal to ps.execute query. All right. And I need to bring that in too. All right, and then process the results. By the way, we should have put that up here. Why? Because a result set is another resource that we need to close. rs.close. Okay. You might be thinking to yourself, well, wait, I've used try with resources before, right? I should put that up here. You now have 3 resources. How are you going to close them all? I think that there's a syntactical way of doing it. It ain't pretty, though. All right. So let's rethrow this up here. There. Okay. All right. Process the results. Now, here's how it works. I'm going to go ahead and execute this query. I'm getting the same thing here. Now, initially, this is your result set. Everything in here is your result set. Initially, there are 3 elements here. Initially, the result set is pointing before the first one. What I need to do is I need to process this so that point to the next one, then process it. Point to the next one, process it. Point to the next one, process it. Point to the next one, at which point it says there are no others, and we are done processing all those results. Right? The way that we do that is in what kind of a loop? Do you want to use a for loop or a while loop? Yeah, while, because we don't know how many results there are. Right? We'd have to make another query and ask it, how many records are there in the person table? Oh, 1 million? Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and go into a for loop for 1 million, but in the intervening time, guess what? 1,000 new records were created. Right? Use a while loop here, okay? The way we do this is really old school. It's called an iterator pattern, rs.next. rs.next will advance the pointer to the next record, next record, next record, but it'll also return true. There is another record. True, true, true. When it gets down to here, though, it returns false, breaking me out of this while loop. So while you still have another record here, kind of like a scanner, right? Scan it, while it has next line, read the next line, except that both of those two are one operation here. Give me the next record, true, false. Give me the next record, true, false. Okay? And then we're done at that point. Right? So now we're on one record. Right now, rs points to the current record. Record, excuse me. All right. We need to pull out the person ID, the UUID, the first name, and the last name. All right. So this is where it's just boilerplate crud now. Int person ID is equal to rs.get, not get concurrency, get integer, right, of person ID. There we go. Integer. There we go. Get int. Oh, it's get int. Sorry. There. It is shorthand int. Then the next one is a UUID. So string UUID is equal to rs dot get string UUID. Now, before we go on here, should I be using a string for a UUID? Probably not. So let's go ahead and change this to UUID, and then we'll say UUID dot, is it new? From string. There you go. From string, rs dot get string. There. Right. By the way, there is no, when I don't know the history of UUIDs. When were they created? History of UUIDs. Do you have a history? Oh, yep, 1980s. Okay, so it does predate Java entirely, right? Or does it? Oh, the Apollo, not the Apollo mission, but the Apollo computer. Okay. There, that's the true one. Our RFC request for comment 4122. Oh wow. When was it originally? Oh wow. So they are relatively new. Java does not predate them. I mean, they were created a long time ago in the 80s, but as far as universal acceptance here, it's only 2005. They're only 20 years old. Cool. I didn't know that. Say what? All right, so it is a more recent thing, and therefore there's not going to be an rs.getUUID. Right? Besides, that's not how we're storing it in the database anyway. We're storing it as a string because MySQL does not support UUIDs. Postgres does. Right? Postgres is a much better database. Right? I've tried to get them to install it for years, but whatever. All right, string first name is equal to rs.get string and their first name. Got to make sure, these are the column names, by the way, over here. These are the column names. And why do I not need to look back to understand, oh, I was storing it as last name, first name, UUID, et cetera, et cetera. Why do I not even need to look back there? Because I followed those naming conventions. First name and last name, those are exactly the ones that I use in the person class here. UUID, I didn't put person UUID or something, right? Don't repeat yourself. Unfortunately, I did do it here because that's what it's named in my database. I'm keeping the, so normally I'd say, use an ID. Don't repeat yourself and say person ID. But because I did that in the database, I want to make them the same. Right? Now that I've got those pieces of data, I can actually create a person. Person P is equal to new person of person ID, UUID, is it first name or last name? Last name? What was the order? First, then last. Right. Sensible. And once I've got that person, I can add them to my results up here. I call it persons.add that person P. Right. Then we come down here, close our result set, close our prepared statement, close our connection, and return persons. Let's see if it works. Oh, I'm not actually doing anything with it. All right, so for person P in everyone, right? System.out.println P. All right, now let's actually see it. There we go. John Smith, Jane Smith, Craig Council. Right? And John, Jane, Craig. We did it. Except that, did we get their emails? Nope. So let's go back to the drawing board. First of all, how do I know that I didn't get their emails? Because I'm not actually printing them out over here. Right? So let me go ahead and change this toString method here. String result is equal to, I will format everything like that, but then for all of their emails, I'll go ahead and put those all indented on another line. So for string email in this dot emails, I will say result plus equals a tab over and then email. You can use string.format there if you want to as well. Return result. Okay. Now, if I were to run this again, there probably aren't any emails. Emails is null. Okay, that's why. All right, so let's come back up here. What should I have done up here? This dot emails is equal to new array list. I should have initialized it at least to an empty array list. And there. There's John Smith, Jane Smith, Craig Council, because there are no emails over here. Remember, we deleted them all when we were demonstrating transactions. So let's add an email there. Insert into email, person ID and address, values, and here I'll put them in for Craig Council there because I think that that's what we did before. 30, and then A at B.com and C at D.com. There. And close that. Oh, and then I need 30 here as well. Sorry. And then I need these in two different records. So there. And a comma. Darn it. There. Okay. I'm still not going to get their emails though, or am I? Because what was I selecting? That stuff. Now you might think immediately, well, okay, what I'll do is I'll do a join here. In fact, what kind of a join would you want to? I'm going to do star here for a second. From person P, join, left join. Why do we want a left join? We want to keep people even if they don't have a record, any email records, right? Left join, email E on p.person ID is equal to e.person ID. Right? But guess what? We'll be pulling over null values for people that aren't there. Right? Not only that, but Craig there has 2 emails. What are we pulling across the wire twice now? His UUID, his person ID, his first name, and his last name, right? So even though, and not using the star operator, that won't solve this problem. I am pulling over redundant information over the wire here, right? Now, if you're doing this once, twice, big deal. But if you're doing this millions of times, you start to notice it really quick, right? So instead of putting that into this up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. And now I'm going to, I don't know, 3C, right? Formulate a query to pull the emails for each person, ... String, query. Can I use query again? I could reset it. I don't like that though. So I'll just go ahead and make another query, email query. Maybe I have an argument for coming up here and calling this person query now, because there's not just one query anymore. There we go. I like that a little bit better. So what's the email query? Select everything. So what do we actually select everything? What do we actually need here? Do we need the email ID? I don't have any, I don't even have an email class, right? Do I need the address? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Do I need to pull the person ID when I have it over here already? Nope. So I will just say pull the address, and I'll just get the addresses. Right? And I won't end up doing a left join here, so I'll end up doing basically what this is, this kind of join, where I just got those 2 emails right there. Because I'm going to do it for each person. So select address from email. Now here I'm going to do it for one person at a time, where person ID is equal to Craig there is 30. But what about the other ones? 20. What about that person, which is 10, right? I don't know. So I'm going to leave it blank here. In fact, that's actually what you do, right? You put in a question mark here. That's called a parameter. We're going to set that parameter here in a moment. Before I do that, over here, we put in the semicolon. That's actually optional, okay? Over here, it ain't optional, right? Over here in JDBC, it is optional. So put it or leave it, doesn't matter. Just be consistent about it. Right? So there's the email query. Once again, I'm going to have a try catch. Okay. And SQL exception, it will be thrown here in a second. PS is equal to con.prepare statement for the email query. Now before I go on, remember here, let me give myself some more room. We created a prepared statement and a result set up here, but we never closed it. Instead, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to overwrite it. That's left open. So I now have an argument for coming up here, and once I'm done processing all of those emails, I should probably clean it up right here and right now. Right? Don't close your connection, because you need it right here. Right? Don't close that. Close things almost immediately when you no longer need them. Okay? If you want to be really thorough, you can add a bunch of if-else-if statements. If rs is not equal to null, and rs dot is closed, is closed. If it's not already closed, then close it. Because somebody might have closed it already up there. Closing things twice, it doesn't cause an issue, I don't believe. But that's going to be vendor specific, unfortunately. All right, there we go. If the prepared statement is not closed, and it's not null, then close it. Otherwise, con. If the connection con is not closed, or is not null, and it's not closed, then close it. You can see why this stuff kind of gets boilerplate gross, right? At least this boilerplate close up here can probably be put into what's called a connection factory, right? Another function that is responsible for keeping track of all this stuff for you. Right? Okay. All right, so we formulated our query. rs is equal to ps.execute query. Right? Except that what's going to happen here with this question mark Is that valid SQL? Give me the emails. I don't know. Right. That's not gonna fly here. Right? There's an error in your SQL syntax. We have to get rid of this thing. You might be immediately thinking, okay, well, I'll go ahead and concatenate the person ID of the person that we're trying to do this with. This is exactly, this is still, to this day, the #1 attack avenue of web pages, right? Especially those written in crappy PHP. This is susceptible to what's called an SQL injection. If somebody is using concatenation, what could I put over here as my person ID or my login or something like that? I could say drop table, right? Everything, or drop database, right? Foo, right? And guess what you just did? In fact, I could say, there we go, and drop database foo. I just ended your first query, and I injected my own query over here. Don't do that. Only use prepared statements and properly prepare them. So to prepare them before you actually execute the query, you do the following: ps.setInt, the first one, and you'll set it equal to the person.getID, get person ID. Now it's not going to work because we haven't defined who person is here yet. But note here, it starts at 1. Weird, right? I would go back 20 years and tell them, don't do that. Start at 0, and also don't do this at all. Don't use ordinals at all. You should be using a named parameter like this. Unfortunately, I didn't. I wouldn't have. They wouldn't have listened to me anyway. But yes, I was back there. I was not at like. Would Oracle have bought them out by then? I think so. Oracle bought out the Java programming language from Sun, not because they wanted it, but because then they could sue Microsoft over it, and ultimately they lost. And that's we have free and open source Java. Unfortunately, not the one that we suggest is like AWS's Coretta. That's not really free and open source though. But anyway, there is Open JDK out there. Right? Anyway, there's our setting. Then we of course can execute the query, and then we can, let's see what else, and then we can while rs.next. Same pattern as before. Email, so it's going to be a string. Email is equal to rs.get string, and its address. That's the name of the column. And then what we'll do is say person.add email, right? And then at the end we say rs.close and ps.close. Now that'd be great if there was one person, but there's not one person. There are how many people? 3, right? So we need to do it for each one of them. So the question becomes, where do we put this into a loop? One thing I could say, well, wait, this is quite substantial here. What if we put this into another function? Right? Load email for this person with their person ID. You could do that. Right? We will do that eventually, maybe. But how do I resolve it here? Where should I put the loop? Should I put the loop way outside here? Let's think about that. For person P in the collection persons, for each persons, do all of this. And so all of this will be, there we go. And I should have used person here. There we go. And you don't have an ID? That's right, we didn't do a getter there. All right, so let's go ahead and generate that getter. Source, generate getters. We've got most of the getters already, but it doesn't have one for person ID. Let's generate that. And it put it there somewhere. I didn't want the setter though. There, the get person ID. There it is. And now we're okay over here. All right. All right. Think about what that's going to do. First of all, this query, do you need to repeat that string over and over and over again? No. Already something should be outside of the loop. Do you need to prepare this statement over and over again? Nope. Let's do it outside this query. Right? Now we're going to have to come back here because the try catch is going to be different. But do we need to reset it for each person? Yes. Right? So let me actually move that back down here and rethink this. Where do I want my loop, actually? So I don't need to prepare my statement, but I do need to reset it for every single person here. So let's go ahead and move that over. Now let's keep going. I'm going to reset it for each person. I'm going to execute it for each person because you do need to go through all the addresses for that person. Do you need to close it? Something you need to close. What are you done with at this point? The result set. What are you not done with at this point? You're not done with that prepared statement. Because I'm going to use it again and reset the number, or reset the person ID up here. Right? There we go. And I just auto corrected all the indentation. Okay. All right, let's find out if this works. Oh, wait, I'm not actually doing it. Oh, no, I am. I'm adding the email there. So let's see if this gets Craig Council's 2 emails now. There they are. A@b.com, C@d.com. Right, nothing for the rest of them. So I should have put the tab in, but what else should I put in there? An inline character. And I should also put an inline character up here. There we go. Nope, like that. And now it'll look nice and pretty. Right? Except that it doesn't look that pretty if they don't have any emails there. So you can check to see if they have an email. I don't care. Right? It's good at this point. Okay. What if you forget to close your resources? Let me just do it on this one. Okay. And let me come down here. After we've printed everybody out, we're going to go into an intentional infinite loop here so that the program doesn't just die. Let's run this. It's going. Let me show you all the connections that are connected to the database right now under me. So show process list. I've got 3 persistent connections right now. That one is the one that I just used to show the process list. This one is MySQL Workbench. I think that this one is MySQL Workbench, keeping it open just so that, when I close MySQL Workbench, this one will be closed. Right? What about this one right here? It's been open for 9 seconds. Now it's been open for 36 seconds. Now it's been open for 40 seconds. Right? Now it's been open for 44 seconds. Which connection is that? This one right here. Let's stop it. And I'm going to cross my fingers. I'm pretty sure that it worked, but there, it's gone now. Right? 9 times out of 10, when your program dies or it ends, then it'll close those connections. Right? It's that 1 time out of 10 that it's not going to close those connections. It'll keep them open, maybe for up to 5 minutes. 5 minutes is the standard timeout, and then it'll close those connections if you haven't done anything. Right? This one is past 5 minutes. Right? No, it's not. It's only that's less than 4 minutes right now. But it will reset that connection and say, please stay open, right? By pinging the server. We don't want that over here, right? We want to close our connections because it's that 1 time out of 10 or 1 time out of 100 or something that they'll stay open. It's 1 time out of 1,000 that it'll really screw up and not reset after 5 minutes. Then you're calling up the sysadmin and saying, can you please restart the entire server, right? You are allowed at most 30 connections at one time. That's the limit. When you open up 30 connections and that 31st connection is not closed, guess what happens? Denied. Access denied. And you're sitting there waiting for 5 minutes, hoping that everything gets reset, or nope, it's been 5 minutes and they're still not reset. I'm making a call making an email to manager@cse.unl.edu. And you're crossing your fingers that they get to it within 24 hours because they are overworked and understaffed. Right? So close your connections. Also, at some point, you're going to write code that is so complex and you forgot to close that one connection, and then you're trying to pin it down. I hit my 30 limit, right? And now I've got 31, and it's crashing, right? And you're gonna rack your brain. Well, I open it here, I close it here, I open it here, I close it here, and you're going through thousands of lines of code trying to find which is the culprit, right? This is not going to help. Right? It's not going to show you anything other than like it's waiting, it's asleep. Right? It's not going to show you the last query that it ran. Right? The diagnostic tools that you have to figure that out are very, very limited. Right? If I were admin, I could find it out, but I ain't admin. Right? And they're not making me admin anytime soon. Right? Okay? So always close your resources. And we did here. So there we go. No infinite loop either. All right. So there's our first foray into this. What I want to do next time is, well, that loads all people. What if you don't want them all? What if you just want one of them? Public, static, person, load person. Now, how are you going to load them? By what criteria? A UUID? Okay. And let's go ahead and put in UUID here. UUID. Would anybody want to load them any other way? How else is a person uniquely identified? Person ID. All right, which one do we want to do? Porque los nostos. Right? No, I'm terrible on Spanish here, but why not both? Right? It makes it more flexible, right? So are you going to do all three types, right? Three loading functions for every single table that you have, right? You don't need to do that. Do it if you want to. It's up to you, right? This is way in the future, but this is after the break, by the way. But whenever you do load up some entities, you're going to have to make the call. Do I just load them all up all at once, or should I have this kind of load them by their ID and load them by their UUID or whatever? Right? That's a design decision that's going to be left up to you. Is there that much difference here? Here, with just 3 minutes left, what would you eliminate or what would you change in this? Let's go back to the top here. First of all, I don't have this list anymore. What do I have? Just one person, P. All right. Same stuff here. Same stuff here. Probably belongs somewhere else then. Don't repeat yourself. Formulate your query. Do you want all the people? Nope. Where person ID, are we doing person ID here or UUID? UUID is equal to whatever. Right? You're still going to prepare your statement. You're still going to have a result set. But here you are going to ps.set string of the UUID to the UUID that you were given. All right? Come on. There we go. And then to string. Got to convert the UUID to a string. All right, are you expecting more than one result here? Nope. So what should our while loop turn into here? I'm expecting one result, but what happens if I gave you a bad UUID? Then you would expect 0 results. So if you have a result, then process it. Else, question mark, we'll have to determine what to do there. All right? And change that to person, right there. What was it? It was P. P. It was still P. All right, there we go. And then we'll have to figure the rest of this out on Wednesday. Right? What do you want to do here? Is there anything else that needs to be changed? Right? Do you load up their emails the same way? Yep. So maybe we should have put this into another function because it sounds like we could reuse it and not repeat ourselves. Right? All right, we'll pick it up there on Wednesday.